So given that your company helps businesses with AI, can you share some examples about what you're seeing when people are struggling with AI? What are some of the most common issues that people are trying to wrangle?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, data is number one. I mean, we learned very early on in our company that the models are only as good as the data that's provided to them. So typically what we find is when we train a model off a set of data, we learn that the data isn't deep enough, rich enough, complete enough. And so there's a lot of work to go back and figure out how to get that data in a good place. I mean, everybody thinks AI is easy. Like it's abound all over the internet that turning on AI is simple. But the reality is it takes a lot of time to think about the problems that are worthy of solving with AI. And then, like I said before, kind of digging underneath them to make sure you have data to solve those problems. So I think a lot of people kind of just jump right into, let's throw AI at a problem. And in many cases, those are projects that don't go to production, that people don't use, and therefore they tend to be a waste of investment. That said, I mean, experimenting with AI is really important. And so companies should not be held back by their data to just start playing around with AI and getting used to it, but to apply it in a real enterprise environment where people are using it every day. There's a lot of thought and effort that goes into the data and the problems that you're trying to solve.
So do you think some of the misconception about the ease of AI is because you can pop open ChatGPT and you don't need any data and you can just start typing away and asking questions? Is that contributing to the false easiness of it?
Sure. And like ChatGPT can be applied like out of the box in your business environment, but when it comes to using your own data, that's where it gets a lot more complex. And so businesses are, picking up ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and applying them in certain use cases. But when they integrate AI with their own data, that's where it becomes more complicated because they're relying on data in their systems that may or may not be in good shape. Security issues, integrity issues, stability issues, all sorts of things kind of come into play when you're relying on your company's data.
Okay, so let's dig deeper into some of these issues that you brought up. Where do you see companies underinvesting in AI?
Yeah, so similar to what I said earlier, tend to jump right into give an engineer or a data scientist a data set and go solve a problem. But there's quite a bit of work to think about what problems are worthy to solve. For instance, problems where you can kind of measure the before and after with AI are great problems to look into. Problems where you already have relevant data, deep data, those are problems that are worth solving. Problems where you're creating a lot of human effort in doing the solution in a manual fashion, those are problems. So there's a lot of kind of product management in the AI space that needs to be deployed before you kind of dig in and really spend a lot of time on engineering.
So for the companies who decide to actually invest in AI, you brought up this whole point about companies that just start doing it and start going at it, and others who really want to understand where it can really help. Can you give an example of maybe one of the companies you've worked with?
Sure. Yeah, we've worked with a lot of different types of companies. One that comes to mind is a construction equipment company. They're a pretty well-known company, and they have lots throughout the country where they store equipment, and then they get equipment ready for their construction clients to use on sites. This company had an idea where they wanted to start identifying equipment moving in and out of the lots. And they had hired a camera system company to put in cameras. And then they gave us a bunch of data from these cameras and said, hey, can you use AI to identify the equipment coming in and out? One of the things we learned very early on in this project was that, as I mentioned before, the AI is only as good as the data. So in this case, they had installed cameras that were low resolution. They installed cameras in places that wasn't capturing all the identifying information. And so, after a fairly arduous process, we realized that actually, instead of just trying to solve this problem around identifying equipment, let's actually think about the bigger problem that's being solved here, which was actually how to make the process of readying equipment more efficient. And therefore, they needed an entirely new camera system in different places in the lot to track equipment as it moves in to the lot and across different places where it gets serviced. And so this is very typical, like kind of, let's solve an easy problem with AI, but it doesn't actually fit into a business problem that's trying to be solved. And, unfortunately, in those situations, you spend a lot of time and money, realizing you have to kind of rethink the problem itself.
And isn't that pretty frustrating that here's a company that thinks they have all this rich data, this gold mine of data that they gave you, and then you come back to them and say, thanks very much, but really the data's not good enough?
Yes, that is a challenge. I mean, in the first couple of years of the company, we were having a lot of those conversations, and it can be kind of a downer for the client. Certainly, on our side of the things, over the years, we've gotten better at asking for sample data in our sales process, so we can kind of take a look at it and give them some feedback on what's possible and not possible. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to turn the crank at least once with an AI model and proprietary data to determine whether it's viable or not.
Great. And a lot of the things that you're talking about, you keep talking about people and process, not just technology, which, again, a lot of people would just think about the technology aspect. Tell me more about how the people and process is so important to
Yeah.
him.
So if you think about a sales organization, right, they use a CRM system, and on a regular basis, management probably wants to know, what does our sales forecast look like? How much money are we going to make? Well, those people are entering data into the CRM system. And if they're entering faulty data into that system, or erroneous data into that system, those forecasts are completely off. And so people are really the center of this whole process. Putting data into a system and thinking about that data as an asset to fuel predictive analytics in this case is really, really important. And then, of course, people kind of work through a process in order to do their jobs. And if they're jumping outside of that process and skipping entering certain data, well, then the downstream predictive analytics is poor. So from my perspective, people and process are the hardest part of AI, the most overlooked part, because the technologists are talking about AI as this amazing thing. But the governance of data in particular is one of those areas where companies really have a hard time focusing people and process, to make sure their data is in good shape.